What does a slave look like? You probably imagine a man in chains, tattered clothes, a bent back, downcast, defeated eyes. But let me tell you about the richest slave I ever met. He wore silk garments that cost more than most men would earn in an entire lifetime. His fingers glittered with rings of gold and precious stones. He owned 3 palaces, commanded 50 servants, and controlled trade routes that stretched from Spain to Constantinople. Kings sought his counsel. Merchants feared his competition. Women admired his success, and yet he was the most enslaved man I had ever known. It was Cordoba in the year 1183. I was 45 years old and already known as a physician and scholar. But this encounter would teach me something about human nature that would forever change my understanding of freedom, wealth, and what it really means to be a man. His name was Ibrahim Yusuf, a merchant prince who built an empire through brilliance, ruthlessness, and an appetite for wealth that knew no bounds. He came to me not as a patient, but as a man desperate for something he could not buy. "Rambam," he said, his voice trembling despite his outward confidence. "I have everything a man could want, but I feel like..." He paused, struggling with words he had never spoken aloud. "Like what?" I asked gently. "Like a prisoner in my own life." In that moment I saw something that would haunt me for years. Here was a man who commanded others, yet was commanded by forces he could not even name. A man who owned vast estates, yet was dominated by his obsessions. A man who seemed free to do anything, yet was free to do nothing that truly mattered. And when I looked into his eyes, I realized something profound. The greatest slavery is not imposed from the outside. It is chosen from within. Most men enslaved by circumstances dream of external freedom. They imagine that if only they could break their chains, escape their masters, change their situations, then they would be free. But this man had every external freedom one could imagine. No master told him what to do. No chain bound his body. No outside force controlled his movements. Yet he was more enslaved than any captive I had ever met. Because his chains were invisible, his master was internal, his prison was psychological, and his slavery was chosen day after day through his own actions and appetites. That was when I began to understand what true freedom really means, and why most successful men, especially the successful, never experience it. You see, external success can actually worsen internal slavery. When a man accumulates enough wealth and power, he begins to believe he is free. But often, he has only accumulated more sophisticated forms of slavery. Slavery to his appetites, slavery to his reputation, slavery to his fears, slavery to the very success that was supposed to set him free. That night, I told Ibrahim something that shocked him deeply, something that may shock you as well. I told him the truth about his condition. I told him why his wealth was his prison. I told him why his success was his slavery, and I told him the ancient secret of breaking chains that no one else can see. What I am about to share with you comes directly from the Mishneh Torah, from the laws of character development, Hilchot Deot. These are not just philosophical concepts. They are practical tools for recognizing and breaking the invisible bonds that enslave even the most successful men. Are you ready to discover whether you are free or just a slave with expensive chains? Because what I told Ibrahim that night may be the most important truth you will ever hear. Picture this scene. The richest man in Cordoba, dressed in garments that could feed a family for years, kneeling in my study. Not because of physical illness, not because of financial crisis, but because he had finally realized something that terrified him more than death itself. "Rabbi," Ibrahim whispered, his voice breaking, "I think I have never made a free choice in my entire life." The candle flames flickered between us as this powerful man crumbled before my eyes. Everything I do, everything I want, everything I pursue, it is as if I am being driven by something I cannot control. I leaned forward. Tell me what your typical day looks like. I wake up thinking of gold, how to get more, how to protect what I have. I eat breakfast while calculating profits. I spend every waking moment acquiring or defending. And your family, they are part of the equation. I provide for them, I protect them, but even with them, I think of legacy, inheritance, status. When was the last time you did something simply because it brought you joy? Long silence. I can't remember. When was the last time you refused to chase a profitable opportunity because it felt wrong in your soul? Another pause. Never. If it was profitable and legal, I pursued it. When was the last time you felt truly at peace? His eyes filled with tears. Rabbi, I don't think I even know what peace is anymore. And there it was, the confession that revealed the depth of his slavery. You see, most men think slavery is being forced to do things you don't want to do. But the deepest slavery is being unable to stop doing things you no longer want to do. Ibrahim wanted peace, but he could not stop chasing profit. He wanted relationships, but he could not stop treating people as transactions. He wanted joy, but he could not stop calculating advantage in every moment. He had become a slave to patterns of thought and behavior that controlled him more completely than any external master ever could. I watch other men, he continued. Men with less money, smaller homes, simpler lives, and they seem lighter somehow, as if they are living their own lives instead of being lived by them. What do you think makes the difference? I asked. I don't know. That's why I'm here. It was then I realized I was witnessing something that would become an epidemic in the years ahead. Men who achieved everything they thought they wanted, only to discover they had lost themselves in the process. Men who accumulated external power while losing internal authority over their own lives. Men who became masters of their circumstances while becoming slaves to their compulsions. From the Mishneh Torah, I read to him this passage. A person should not be overly cheerful and carefree, nor sad and sorrowful. Instead, he should always be joyful and have a calm countenance. Notice, I said, it does not say, be joyful when you get what you want. It says, be joyful at all times. But how is that possible, he asked, when you're constantly worried about business, competition, and security? That is exactly the problem. You think happiness depends on controlling circumstances, but circumstances are, for the most part, beyond your control. Then, what can I control? Your responses, your choices, your character. But Rabbi, I do choose. I choose to work hard, to be smart with investments, to protect my family. No, I said gently. You react. You are driven by fear, by greed, by social pressure, by habit. When was the last time you paused before an important decision and asked yourself, is this choice serving my highest good or my compulsions? He stared at me. You mean, I am not truly choosing my life? I mean, you are living a programmed life instead of a conscious one. How can I change this? First, you must understand what is controlling you. Show me your chains, I said to Ibrahim. He looked confused. Rabbi, I wear no chains. I am a free man. I walked over to the window and pointed to his elaborate carriage waiting outside, flanked by servants in expensive livery. What do you see? I see the fruits of my success. Comfort, status, the ability to travel in style. I see your first chain. His face grew pale. That carriage does not serve you, you serve it. How many hours did you work to buy it? How much anxiety do you feel when it needs repair? How much of your identity is tied to owning something more impressive than your rivals? I pointed to the rings on his fingers. Your second chain. My jewels. Your need to display wealth. Tell me, what happens inside you when you meet someone whose rings are larger, whose displays are more extravagant? He stayed silent. You feel diminished, threatened, compelled to acquire something even more impressive. That compulsion is a chain. I pointed to the fine fabric of his robes. Your third chain. But these clothes, they are beautiful, comfortable. They inspire respect. They also command you. You can no longer appear in public in simple clothes without feeling you've lost status. You are enslaved to the opinions of others about your appearance. I returned to my desk and opened the Mishneh Torah to Hilchot Deot chapter 2. There are temperaments in which a man must not follow the middle path. He must turn away from one extreme and adopt the other. The text speaks of pride, I explained. A man should not be proud, but rather very, very humble. But Rabbi, in business, you cannot appear weak. You must project confidence, success, power. And that is the chain that binds them all together. What do you mean? You have confused confidence with show, strength with possessions, power with accumulation. But don't successful men need these things? Tell me about the most powerful man you know. He thought for a moment. Probably the Sultan. He has absolute authority. Does he own his possessions, or do his possessions own him? I am not sure I understand. Can he walk the streets as an ordinary man without fear? Can he eat simple food without worrying about poison? Can he trust that people love him for who he is and not for what he can give them? Ibrahim's eyes widened as realization began to dawn. You mean even the Sultan is enslaved by his position? I am saying that external power often creates internal slavery. The more you have that can be lost, the more you are controlled by the fear of losing it. The more your identity depends on what you possess, the more fragile your sense of identity becomes. The more you must maintain appearances, the less freedom you have to be authentic. Let me paint a picture of what true freedom looks like. I once knew a man, a simple carpenter named David. He owned basic tools, a small house, and plain clothing. But when he spoke, men listened, not because of his status, but because of his wisdom. When he worked, he did so with joy and skill, not with anxiety and compulsion. When he faced setbacks, he remained at peace because his identity was not tied to his circumstances. He could lose his tools without losing his confidence. He could wear simple clothes without feeling shame. He could eat basic food without feeling deprived. That man, I told Ibrahim, was free in a way you have never experienced. But he had so little. He needed so little, and that gave him everything. The difference between a free man and a slave is not what they own, it is who owns them. Ibrahim sat in silence, stunned. So my wealth enslaved me. Your attachment to wealth enslaved you. Your need for more wealth enslaved you. Your fear of losing wealth enslaved you. But what about wealth itself? It is only a tool. The question is, are you using the tool, or is the tool using you? Let me tell you why success is often more dangerous than failure, I said to Ibrahim. More dangerous? But surely success is what every man should pursue. Success pursued without wisdom becomes a form of slavery. I rose and began to pace, forming thoughts that would later become central to my writings on character development. When a man fails, he knows he needs help. He knows he must change. He knows his current approach is not working. But when a man succeeds, I paused, letting the implication sink in. He believes his approach is correct. He clings to the methods that brought him success. He fears changing anything, because change might threaten his success. But isn't that logical? It is logical, but it is also a trap. Let me show you what I mean. Your business success came from intense focus on profit, correct? Yes. Ruthless efficiency in all transactions. Absolutely. Viewing every relationship through the lens of advantage. Well, yes. These methods brought you wealth, so you applied them everywhere. To your family relationships, to your health, to your spiritual life, to your inner peace. His face went ashen. You treat your wife like a business partner, your children like investments, your body like a machine that should produce without maintenance. And because these approaches brought you external success, you never questioned whether they were destroying your internal well-being. This is what I call the success trap. The very skills that create external achievement can destroy internal fulfillment. The mindset that accumulates wealth can impoverish the soul. The focus that builds empires can demolish families. The drive that conquers markets can surrender peace. From the Mishneh Torah I read, a person should aim to maintain physical health and vigor so that his soul will be upright, in a condition to know God. Notice the sequence, I explained. Physical health serves spiritual development. External success should serve internal flourishing. But you have reversed the equation. You have sacrificed internal flourishing for external success. And now you are successful and miserable, wealthy and empty, powerful and enslaved. Ibrahim leaned forward, intense concentration in his eyes. So what's the solution? Give up success? Embrace poverty? No, that would be swinging from one extreme to another. The solution is to redefine success itself. What do you mean? Right now you measure success by accumulation. How much you can gather, acquire, control. But true success is measured by liberation. How much you can release, surrender, transcend. I don't understand. A truly successful man is free from the compulsive need for more. He can enjoy wealth without being enslaved by wealth. He can achieve goals without being defined by achievements. He can compete in the marketplace without becoming a marketplace in his soul. But how is that possible? By developing what I call inner authority. Most men seek external authority, the power to control circumstances, command others, manipulate outcomes. But the man with inner authority controls the one thing that actually can be controlled: himself. His thoughts, his responses, his choices, his character. When you have inner authority, external circumstances become much less important. You can be rich or poor, successful or struggling, praised or criticized, and still remain centered. This is true freedom. Not the ability to have everything you want, but the ability to want only what serves your highest good. Not the power to control everything around you, but the wisdom to respond according to your deepest values, no matter what happens around you. Ibrahim sat in silence for a long moment. You are describing something I have never experienced. Most successful men never do, because they are too busy chasing external success to develop internal authority. They become masters of their circumstances while remaining slaves to their impulses. But it doesn't have to be this way. Show me, he said simply. First, you must understand the specific forms of slavery that keep you captive. Tell me about your relationship with food, I said to Ibrahim. Food? What does that have to do with freedom? Everything. A man who cannot control his appetite for food will struggle to control any appetite. I watched his face as the thought began to sink in. Describe your eating habits. Well, I enjoy fine cuisine, the best chefs, exotic spices, elaborate banquets when I entertain colleagues. That's not what I asked. I asked about your relationship with food. He looked confused. Do you eat when you're hungry, or when food is available? Both, I suppose. Do you stop when you're satisfied, or when the food is gone? Usually when it's gone, or when I'm very full. Do you choose what to eat based on what your body needs, or based on what satisfies your cravings in the moment? On what pleases me? Have you ever fasted or abstained from food for any reason other than illness? No. Why would I? I can afford the best foods. And there, I said, is your first form of slavery. He looked shocked. Slavery? But I eat what I want, when I want. That's freedom. No, my friend, that's compulsion disguised as choice. Let me show you the difference. A free man eats to nourish his body and sustain his energy for meaningful work. A slave eats to satisfy cravings, to fill emotional emptiness, to display status, or simply because food is there. A free man can choose to abstain from available pleasures when abstinence serves a higher purpose. A slave cannot say no to available pleasures, even when indulgence is harmful. From the Mishneh Torah, Hilchot Deot, I read, "A person should not eat until his stomach is completely full, but should stop at about 3/4 of satisfaction." This is not about asceticism, I explained. It's about freedom. When you can control your relationship with something as basic as food, you build the ability to control your relationship with everything else. When you are enslaved by your appetites for food, you will be enslaved by your appetites for wealth, status, pleasure, and power. But Rabbi, I work hard. Don't I deserve to enjoy the finest foods? Of course you deserve enjoyment. But do you control the enjoyment, or does the enjoyment control you? What do you mean? Can you sit at a banquet and eat only what your body needs, enjoying it fully, but stop when you're satisfied? Can you choose simple food when elaborate food is available, if the simple food better serves your purpose? Can you fast for a day without anxiety, irritability, or obsessive thoughts about food? Can you eat the same simple meal several times without feeling deprived or bored? He was silent, clearly uncomfortable with the questions. This isn't just about food, I continued. It's about freedom. If you can't control your relationship with food, which is a basic physical need, how can you expect to control your relationship with money, which is a psychological desire? If you can't say no to unnecessary pleasures at the table, how will you say no to unnecessary acquisitions in the marketplace? If you can't distinguish between what you need and what you want when it comes to nutrition, how will you make that distinction when it comes to wealth? The room was quiet, except for the flicker of the candles. You're saying my inability to control my eating reveals my inability to control my life. I'm saying they're connected. The man who masters his appetites masters his life. The man who is mastered by his appetites will be mastered by his life. But that seems so small, so insignificant compared to business decisions and financial strategies. The small reveals the great. A man's character in little things predicts his character in big things. Show me a man's relationship with food, and I'll show you his relationship with money, power, and pleasure. So what do you recommend? Start with one meal. Eat only what's necessary. Stop before you feel full. Watch what happens inside you. Now tell me about anger, I said to Ibrahim. Anger? I'm not an angry person, Rabbi. In fact, I'm quite controlled in business. Really? Tell me what happens when a business partner breaks a deal. His jaw tightened. Well, that's different. I have to respond firmly to keep respect. What happens in your body when you learn a competitor has cut prices? I feel energized, ready to act. What happens in your mind when a servant makes an expensive mistake? I need to correct it immediately and make sure it doesn't happen again. And what happens to your peace when any of these things occur? He paused. I lose it. Temporarily. How long is temporarily? Sometimes hours, sometimes days. And during that time, who is controlling your emotions, your thoughts, your actions? His face went pale. The person who angered me. Exactly. You handed them full authority over your inner state. But Rabbi, some things require a strong response. You can't just let people take advantage of you. I agree completely, but there's a profound difference between a strong response and an angry reaction. Let me show you what I mean. A free man responds to injustice with clarity and purpose. His goal is to correct the problem and prevent future harm. A slave reacts to injustice with wounded pride and emotional compulsion. His goal is to punish the offender and restore his ego. A free man can face wrongdoing without losing his inner peace. A slave cannot face an offense without being disturbed inside. The free man controls his response. The slave is controlled by his reaction. From the Mishneh Torah, I read, "A person should not be quick to anger. Rather, he should be slow to anger, and when it is appropriate to be angry in order to motivate himself or his family to follow the right path, he should display anger outwardly but remain calm inwardly." Notice the key phrase I emphasized. Outward anger, but inward calm. That's what I call strategic firmness instead of reactive anger. But how is that possible? By understanding the true source of anger. Most men think anger is caused by external circumstances. Someone does wrong, so they get angry. But anger is actually caused by unmet expectations. You expected your partner to honor the deal. When he didn't, you got angry. You expected your competitor to compete fairly. When he didn't, you got angry. You expected your servant to perform flawlessly. When he didn't, you got angry. But who created those expectations? He was silent, thinking. I did. And who has the power to adjust those expectations so they align with reality? I do. Then who really controls your anger? I do. Exactly. Your anger is not caused by others' actions. It's caused by the gap between your expectations and reality. Close that gap, and anger loses its power over you. But how can I close it without becoming passive or weak? By expecting people to act according to their nature, not your preferences. Expect your partner to prioritize his own interests, and you won't be shocked when he does. Expect your competitor to use every legal advantage, and you won't be shaken when he does. Expect your servants to make human mistakes, and you won't lose your center when it happens. This doesn't mean accepting bad behavior. It means responding to bad behavior with wisdom rather than with surprise and hurt. When you expect people to be human, you can deal with their failures without being enslaved by your reactions to them. Ibrahim was absorbing this deeply. So freedom is never being angry? Freedom is choosing whether or not to be angry based on what serves your purpose, instead of being automatically triggered by circumstances. A slave is controlled by his anger. A free man controls his anger. Which one are you? There is a third form of slavery, I continued, perhaps the most subtle and destructive of all. What is it? Slavery to reputation, to what others think of you. Ibrahim shifted uncomfortably. But reputation is important in business. A man must maintain his standing in the community. Tell me something, I said. How much of your daily energy is spent thinking about how you appear to others? He was silent for a moment. When you choose your clothes in the morning, what influences your decision? Well, appropriate for the meetings I'll have. The impression I want to make. When you speak in business meetings, are your words chosen to express truth or to maintain a certain image? Both, but mostly to maintain the right image. When you make purchases, your house, your carriage, your possessions, how much is based on real needs compared to the message those purchases send to others? His shoulders slumped. Mostly the message. And when you lie awake at night worrying, how many of those worries are about what people are saying about you, what they think of your decisions, whether you've lost respect or status? Most of them he whispered. Then you understand the third form of slavery. You have become enslaved to the opinions of people you often don't even respect. You make decisions not based on your values, but on maintaining an image. You spend money not on what serves you, but on what impresses others. You choose words not to communicate truth, but to manage perception. You have become a prisoner of your own reputation. Let me tell you the most liberating realization a man can have. Most people do not think about you nearly as much as you think they do. They are far too busy worrying about their own reputations to spend much time analyzing yours. And those who do spend considerable time judging you, their opinions reveal more about their character than about yours. The people whose opinions truly matter, people of wisdom and integrity, judge you by your character, not your possessions or status. From the Mishneh Torah I read, a man should not pursue honor nor flee from it. Instead, he should concern himself with his deeds and not concern himself with honor. This is the key to freedom from the slavery of reputation. Focus on being worthy, not on appearing worthy. Focus on doing what is right, not on being seen as right. Focus on developing character, not managing image. But Rabbi, shouldn't a man care about his reputation? To ignore what others think entirely seems irresponsible. There is a difference between being responsible for reputation and being enslaved by it. A responsible man considers how his actions may affect others' perception of his trustworthiness, integrity, and competence. But he makes decisions based on what is right, and then communicates clearly to help others understand his choices. A slave makes decisions based on what will create the desired perception, regardless of whether those decisions are wise or right. The responsible man serves truth and lets reputation follow. The slave serves reputation and lets truth suffer. Do you see the difference? Ibrahim nodded slowly. One leads to authentic success, the other to impressive failure. Exactly. A man enslaved to reputation will eventually sacrifice everything meaningful to maintain appearances. He will neglect his health to work hours that look impressive. He will damage his family relationships to chase status-driven success. He will compromise his values to avoid criticism or judgment. And in the end, he will have impressed people he does not respect by becoming someone he does not recognize. That is not success. That is sophisticated failure. The room was silent, except for Ibrahim's heavy breathing. How can I be free of this? The same way you are freed from any slavery, by recognizing that the master you have been serving is unworthy of your service. Other people's opinions of you are not your responsibility. Your character is your responsibility. Their judgments are not your business. Your integrity is your business. Their approval is not your goal. Your authenticity is your goal. When you make that shift, everything changes. Let me tell you how I learned to recognize slavery in all its disguises, I said to Ibrahim. It was not by studying slaves in the markets, though that taught me much. It was by treating the richest and most powerful men of my time. Kings, sultans, merchants, nobles, men who commanded armies and ruled vast territories, and I discovered something shocking. Many of them were more enslaved than men actually in chains. How could you tell? By watching their eyes, listening to their words, observing their behavior when they thought no one important was watching. Let me give you the signs I learned to recognize. First sign, a man who cannot be alone with himself. Free men enjoy solitude. They are comfortable with their own thoughts and company. Slaves require constant distraction, entertainment, stimulation, the company of others, because silence forces them to confront their inner emptiness. I treated a sultan who could not last 5 minutes without someone speaking to him, playing music, or providing amusement. He ruled an empire, but could not rule his own mind. Second sign, a man who cannot say enough. Free men know when they have enough food, enough wealth, enough pleasure. Slaves always need more food than their bodies can consume, more wealth than they can spend, more stimulation than they can enjoy. The word enough is foreign to them. I knew a merchant who owned more estates than he could visit in a year, yet still felt compelled to acquire more. He was enslaved by the addiction of acquisition. Third sign, a man whose peace depends on circumstances. Free men remain centered regardless of external conditions. Slaves are destabilized by changes in weather, the moods of others, business fluctuations, and social dynamics. Their inner state is completely dependent on outer conditions. I treated a nobleman who became anxious and irritable if his morning routine was interrupted in the slightest way. He commanded hundreds of men, but he could not control his own emotions. Fourth sign, a man who makes decisions from compulsion rather than choice. Free men pause before important decisions and consider multiple options. Slaves react automatically, driven by habit, emotion, or social pressure. They feel compelled to act in certain ways without knowing why. I treated a wealthy woman who bought expensive items whenever she felt sad or stressed. She thought she was choosing to buy things, but she was being controlled by her emotions. Fifth sign, a man who cannot distinguish between his wants and his needs. Free men clearly separate what they truly need from what they merely desire. Slaves experience every want with equal intensity and urgency. Everything feels necessary, important, immediate. I treated a king who felt he needed a new palace simply because he saw one slightly grander than his own. He could not distinguish between preference and necessity. Ibrahim was listening intently, and I could see he recognized himself in these descriptions. But the clearest sign of all, I continued, is this: a slave cannot imagine a life different from the one he currently lives. He may complain about his circumstances, but he cannot imagine choosing different priorities, different values, different behaviors. His current way of life feels inevitable, unchangeable, the only possible option. Free men can imagine many ways to live and consciously choose the path that serves their highest values. Slaves feel trapped by their circumstances, even when those circumstances appear enviable to others. So when you look at me, what do you see? Ibrahim asked quietly. I see a man who has lived as a slave, but has the potential to choose freedom. The question is, are you ready to make that choice? What would it take? Everything you think you know about success, happiness, and what makes life worthwhile. Are you prepared to question all of it? He drew a deep breath. Yes. I want to give you a test, I said to Ibrahim. It will reveal who really controls your life. What kind of test? A simple experiment. For the next 7 days, I want you to do something that seems impossible. What? Do not make decisions based on the increase of your wealth. His face went pale. Rabbi, I'm a merchant. Everything I do is somehow related to wealth. Exactly. And that is what will make this test so revealing. For 7 days, base every decision on a single question. Which choice serves my deepest well-being and the well-being of those I love? Not, which choice will earn me the most money? Not, which choice will improve my status? Not, which choice will give me advantage? Simply, what serves well-being? But my business will suffer. My competitors will gain an edge. I will lose opportunities. And there, I said, you reveal who your true master is. What do you mean? You just admitted you cannot go 7 days without serving wealth. You cannot even imagine making choices based on well-being instead of profit. That means wealth is your master, not your tool. A free man uses wealth to serve his purposes. A slave serves the purposes of wealth. If you cannot stop chasing wealth even for a week, then you are not choosing wealth. You are compelled to wealth. And compulsion is the opposite of freedom. Udail. Let me explain what this test really reveals. It is not about losing money during these 7 days. It is about whether you can choose a different criterion for decision-making. A free man can temporarily set aside profit as a consideration in order to test other values. A slave cannot set aside profit because profit has become his god. But Rabbi, how can I provide for my family if I ignore financial considerations? I did not say ignore them. I said do not let them control your decisions. There is a difference between considering financial impact and being driven by financial obsession. During this test, you may still notice financial consequences, but you make the final choice based on what serves overall well-being. Give me an example. You have the opportunity to make a profitable deal with a man you know is dishonest. Normally you would take the deal anyway because profit is attractive and his dishonesty does not harm you directly. During the test, you ask, does doing business with the dishonest serve my deepest well-being and the well-being of those I love? You might realize that such deals corrupt your character, weaken your integrity, and set a poor example for your children. So you refuse the deal, not because it is unprofitable, but because it does not serve true well-being. But that might cost me money, and that reveals the purpose of the test. If you cannot choose character over money, relationship over profit, integrity over advantage, then you are not free. You are enslaved to a value system that prioritizes accumulation above all. From the Mishneh Torah, I read, a person must conduct his business with integrity and faithfulness. Notice it does not say when convenient or when profitable. It simply says conduct business with integrity, period. This assumes integrity is more important than profit. But most men have reversed this order. They conduct business with integrity when it is profitable. That makes profit the master and integrity the servant. The test I am giving you reverses that relationship. For 7 days, integrity becomes the master and profit becomes the servant. What do you think will happen? I asked. Ibrahim sat in silence for a long moment. I think I will discover things about myself I do not want to know. Like what? Like how much of my identity depends on constant acquisition, how many of my relationships are really just transactions, how much of my self-worth is tied to my net worth. And that discovery, I said gently, will be the beginning of your freedom, because you cannot free yourself from chains you refuse to recognize. Will you take the test? Before you decide whether to take the test, I said to Ibrahim, let me show you what freedom actually looks like. Because I suspect you have never seen it. Most men think freedom means the ability to do whatever you want, whenever you want. But that is not freedom. That is chaos. True freedom is the ability to do what serves your highest good, especially when other options are available. Let me tell you about the freest man I ever knew. His name was Rabbi Akiva. He began life as a poor shepherd and became one of the greatest sages in Jewish history. But his greatness was not in his learning. It was in his freedom. How so? I once observed him at a banquet given by one of the wealthiest men in Jerusalem. The tables were covered with delicacies from across the Roman Empire. Golden plates, silver goblets, servants attending every guest. The other guests ate until they were uncomfortably full, drank until they lost their senses, and spent the evening trying to impress one another with their wealth and knowledge. But Rabbi Akiva ate exactly what his body needed, and stopped. He drank water while the others drank wine. He listened more than he spoke, and yet he was clearly the most content man in the room. Why? Because he was the only one who was completely free. Free from the compulsion to consume everything available. Free from the need to impress others with status or knowledge. Free from the anxiety that his worth depended on external validation. He ate what served his body. He spoke what served the truth. He acted according to his values, not his impulses. That is what freedom looks like, I told Ibrahim. But he was poor, Ibrahim protested. Surely wealth gives more freedom than poverty. Does it? You have wealth. Do you feel free? Ibrahim was silent. Wealth can provide freedom, but only if you are already free. If you are enslaved internally, wealth only gives you more expensive chains. A poor man enslaved by appetite will steal to satisfy it. A rich man enslaved by appetite will work himself to death to satisfy it. The slavery is the same, only the scale is different. So what makes the difference? Self-mastery, the ability to choose your response to any circumstance. A free man can be rich or poor and still remain centered. A slave will always be controlled by his circumstances, whether abundance or scarcity. From the Mishneh Torah I read, when a person's actions show that he considers himself free from his master's authority, we compel the master to grant him actual freedom. This law about physical slavery reveals something profound about all slavery. When you consistently act as a free person, you become free. When you consistently act as a slave, you remain enslaved, even if no external master controls you. But how do I learn to act like a free person? Begin with small choices that seem insignificant. Choose what to eat based on health, not on immediate desire. Choose what to wear based on appropriateness and comfort, not on impressing others. Choose how to spend your evening based on what renews you, not what is most immediately entertaining. These may seem like small choices, but they are training for freedom. When you can master small choices, you develop the ability to master great ones. When you can say no to immediate pleasure for the sake of long-term benefit, you begin to break the chains of compulsion. Ibrahim leaned forward. That sounds difficult. It is difficult. That is why so few men achieve it. Most men choose the easy slavery of following impulses rather than the difficult work of developing self-mastery. But here is what they do not realize. The easy path becomes harder with time. The hard path becomes easier with time. If you choose the easy slavery of immediate gratification, each year you will become more enslaved, more compulsive, more controlled by circumstances. If you choose the difficult work of self-mastery, each year you will become freer, more capable of choice, more able to respond wisely regardless of what happens around you. So the question is not whether you want an easy life or a difficult life. The question is, do you want the difficulties that come from slavery or the difficulties that come from freedom? Ibrahim was absorbing this deeply. The difficulties of slavery grow worse over time and lead to despair. The difficulties of freedom grow easier over time and lead to peace. Which do you choose? Before I continue with Ibrahim's story, let me pause and ask you something important. Are you recognizing yourself in this wealthy merchant? Are you seeing the chains in your own life that you've been calling choices? If so, then what you're about to learn could change everything. But first, I need you to do something. Below this video, you'll see a red button that says subscribe. Click it now. And right next to it, there's a small bell icon. Click that too. Why am I asking you to do this? Because breaking free from the slavery I'm describing isn't something you do once. It's something you practice every day. You need consistent reminders, regular teaching, ongoing support from others who are walking the same path. When you subscribe, you're joining a brotherhood of men who are committed to real freedom, not just the illusion of freedom that comes from having money. So do that now. Subscribe and ring the bell. Then we'll continue with the story that might save your life. Now back to Ibrahim and the lesson that changed everything for him. Let me tell you about another man, I said. Someone who will show you where your current path leads if you don't change it. His name was Malik ibn Rashid, the wealthiest merchant in all of Egypt. He came to me not as a patient, but as a dying man making his final confession. He was 60 years old, had accumulated more wealth than the pharaohs, controlled trade across 3 continents. And he was the most miserable human being I had ever encountered. What made him so miserable? He had spent 40 years buying everything he thought would make him happy. Houses in every major city, servants for every possible need, women for every desire, food from every corner of the world, art, jewelry, exotic animals, rare books. He had bought everything except peace. Rabbi, he told me with his dying breath, I have purchased every pleasure known to man, but I never learned to purchase a single moment of contentment. I owned libraries full of wisdom, but never owned my own mind. I commanded armies of servants, but never learned to command my own appetites. I accumulated enough gold to buy kingdoms, but I never bought my own soul back from the slavery I sold it into. And then he asked me the question that haunts me still. What good is it to gain the whole world if you lose your own soul? I paused, letting this sink in with Ibrahim. You see, this dying man had discovered what you're just beginning to understand. You can buy everything except the things that matter most. You cannot buy self-respect. You earn it through choices that align with your values. You cannot buy inner peace. You develop it through practices that quiet the compulsive mind. You cannot buy genuine love. You create it through authentic relationship with others. You cannot buy true security. You build it through character that no external circumstance can destroy. You cannot buy real freedom. You achieve it through mastery of yourself. Malik had spent 40 years trying to purchase what can only be developed. And in the process, he had sold the very thing he was trying to buy. Ibrahim's face was pale. Are you saying I'm on the same path? I'm saying every man faces the same choice Malik faced. You can spend your life trying to buy happiness from the outside. Or you can spend your life developing happiness from the inside. One leads to slavery disguised as success. The other leads to freedom that looks like true prosperity. Malik chose wrong. You still have time to choose right. But the window is closing. Every day you delay, the chains get stronger. Every year you wait, the slavery gets more comfortable. How much time do you think you have? I want to clear up a massive misunderstanding, I said to Ibrahim. When most men hear the word discipline, they think of punishment, force, deprivation. They think discipline means making yourself do things you hate. This is completely wrong. Real discipline is liberation, not limitation. Let me show you what I mean. Right now, you work 18 hours a day because you think you have to, correct? Yes. You eat whatever appeals to you in the moment because you think that's freedom, correct? Yes. You spend money on things that impress others because you think that's success, correct? Yes. But none of these are choices. They're compulsions. You're compelled to work 18 hours because you're driven by fear and greed. You're compelled to eat impulsively because you're driven by immediate appetite. You're compelled to spend for status because you're driven by others' opinions. True discipline would free you from all these compulsions. A disciplined man works the hours that serve his purposes, not the hours his fears demand. A disciplined man eats what nourishes his body, not what satisfies his impulses. A disciplined man spends money according to his values, not according to social pressure. So discipline increases choice rather than limiting it? Exactly. Discipline is the practice of choosing long-term good over short-term pleasure. But when you can make that choice consistently, you discover something remarkable. What? The long-term good often brings more genuine pleasure than the short-term pleasure ever did. From the Mishneh Torah, I read, A person should aim for the middle path in all character traits. This is the path of wisdom. Notice it says, aim for, not force yourself toward or punish yourself into. True discipline is like archery. You aim for the target because you want to hit it, not because someone is forcing you to shoot. Give me a practical example. You currently eat until you're uncomfortably full, correct? Often, yes. How do you feel afterward? Heavy, sluggish, sometimes regretful. Now imagine eating until you're satisfied, but not overly full. How would you feel? Probably lighter, more energetic. So the discipline of eating moderately would actually give you more pleasure, not less. The immediate pleasure of overeating is brief and followed by discomfort. The pleasure of eating moderately lasts longer and includes the satisfaction of feeling healthy and energetic, which is actually more pleasurable, the moderate approach. But why don't I naturally choose it? Because you've trained yourself to respond to immediate impulses rather than consider long-term consequences. You've become enslaved to the short-term perspective. Discipline trains you to consider long-term consequences. This actually increases your total pleasure over time. Let me give you another example. You currently spend money to impress others, correct? Yes. How long does the satisfaction from a new purchase typically last? A few days, maybe a week. And then, I want something else. So the pleasure is brief and requires constant repetition. Now imagine spending money only on things that truly serve your life and values. How would that feel? I think more satisfying, like I was building something real instead of just consuming. Exactly. The discipline of purposeful spending would actually give you more lasting satisfaction. You'd still spend money, but you'd spend it as a free man rather than as a slave to impulse and social pressure. This is what most men misunderstand about discipline, and they think it means having less pleasure. But it actually means having better pleasure, higher quality pleasure that lasts longer and doesn't leave you feeling empty. Discipline is not the enemy of pleasure. It's the path to better pleasure. A slave seeks immediate pleasure and gets brief satisfaction followed by emptiness. A free man practices discipline and gets lasting satisfaction that builds over time. Which would you prefer? Now I'm going to teach you the single most powerful practice for breaking free from any form of slavery, I said to Ibrahim. It's an ancient technique that has been used for thousands of years, but most modern men have never heard of it. What is it? The practice of deliberate abstinence. Abstinence? You mean giving things up? Not permanently, temporarily, strategically, to prove to yourself that you can. Let me explain what I mean. Right now, you're enslaved by comfort, convenience, and immediate satisfaction. You eat whenever you feel like eating. You buy whatever appeals to you in the moment. You seek entertainment whenever you feel bored. You respond to every impulse as if it were a command. This makes you weak, reactive, enslaved. But what if, for short periods, you deliberately chose discomfort, inconvenience, and delayed satisfaction? What would that accomplish? It would prove that you can choose your responses rather than being controlled by your impulses. It would strengthen your capacity for self-discipline. It would break the psychological patterns that keep you enslaved. Give me specific examples. Choose 1 day per week to eat only simple foods, not because you can't afford better, but because you're practicing freedom from the need for constant pleasure. Choose 1 day per month to walk instead of riding in your carriage, not because the carriage is broken, but because you're practicing independence from comfort. Choose 1 hour each day to sit in silence without any entertainment or distraction. Not because you have nothing to do, but because you're practicing freedom from the need for constant stimulation. These sound like punishments. They seem like punishments to a slave. To a free man, they're exercises in liberation. Think of a soldier training for battle. Does he practice with weapons because he enjoys the discomfort? Or because the practice makes him stronger when real battle comes? These practices are training for the battles of daily life. When you can choose simple food over elaborate food, you've weakened the power of appetite over your decisions. When you can choose walking over comfort, you've weakened the power of convenience over your choices. When you can choose silence over entertainment, you've weakened the power of distraction over your mind. From the Mishneh Torah, I read, "Just as the wise man is recognized by his wisdom and character traits, so too should he be recognized in his eating, drinking, and other physical conduct." Notice it says, recognized by. Your physical practices reveal your level of internal freedom. A man who cannot control his eating cannot be trusted to control his business decisions. A man who needs constant comfort cannot be trusted to handle discomfort when it's necessary for important goals. A man who cannot tolerate silence cannot be trusted to think clearly about complex problems. But Rabbi, won't people think I'm strange if I start practicing these disciplines? Only people who are slaves themselves. Free men recognize and respect self-discipline in others. Besides, which is more important? What enslaved people think of your practices, or what your practices do for your freedom? You're right. Start with something small. One practice, once per week. Perhaps every seventh day, eat only simple foods. Bread, vegetables, water. Not as punishment, as practice. While you're eating simply, notice what happens in your mind. Do you feel deprived, anxious, obsessed with what you're not eating? If so, you'll discover how enslaved you've become to culinary pleasure. Or do you feel calm, grateful for basic nourishment, free from the compulsion to constantly seek more elaborate satisfaction? If so, you'll taste what freedom feels like. This one practice will begin to break chains you didn't even know existed. But you must approach it correctly. Not as deprivation, but as liberation. Not as punishment, but as training. Not as something you have to do, but as something you choose to do to become free. Will you try it? The greatest battle you will ever fight, I told Ibrahim, is not with competitors or external enemies. It's with your own mind. What do you mean? Your mind, left to itself, is not your friend. It's a wild animal that will destroy your peace, your relationships, and your life if you don't learn to master it. But my mind is what's made me successful. Part of your mind has made you successful, the strategic, planning, problem-solving part. But another part of your mind is making you miserable, the worrying, craving, comparing part. Most men never learn to distinguish between these different functions of the mind. They let every thought, every worry, every impulse control their emotions and actions. This is mental slavery. Show me what you mean. Right now, as we're talking, what's going through your mind besides our conversation? Ibrahim paused, paying attention to his thoughts for perhaps the first time. I'm thinking about a business deal I need to complete tomorrow. I'm worrying about whether my wife is upset with me for being away so long tonight. I'm noticing that I'm hungry. I'm thinking about whether people will see me leaving your house and wonder what we discussed. How many separate concerns is that? 4 or 5. And how much control do you have over any of those thoughts? I never really thought about it. They just seem to happen. Exactly. Your mind is running you instead of you running your mind. Those thoughts are commanding your attention, creating emotions, influencing your actions. You are not choosing your thoughts. Your thoughts are choosing you. From the Mishneh Torah, I read, a person should aim to maintain his thoughts in a proper state so that his heart will be upright before God. Notice it says, maintain his thoughts in a proper state. This assumes that you can control your thoughts. But most men never develop this capacity. How do I develop it? through what I call the practice of mental discipline. First, you must learn to observe your thoughts without being controlled by them. Right now, you experience every thought as true, important, and requiring immediate attention. But thoughts are just mental events, like sounds or smells. They arise, exist for a moment, and disappear. You don't have to believe every thought. You don't have to act on every impulse. You don't have to be controlled by every worry. But how do I know which thoughts to pay attention to? Ask yourself, is this thought helping me respond wisely to my current situation? The thought about tomorrow's business deal, is it helping you prepare effectively? Or is it just creating anxiety about things you can't control right now? It's creating anxiety. Then dismiss it. Tell yourself, I will think about that business deal tomorrow when I can actually do something about it. The thought about your wife, is it motivating you to be more present with her when you return home? Or is it just creating guilt about a choice you've already made? Creating guilt. Then dismiss it. Tell yourself, I will apologize if necessary, and focus on being fully present with her when I return. You mean I can just decide not to think about something? With practice, yes. Your mind is like a muscle. The more you exercise control over it, the stronger that control becomes. But it requires practice. What kind of practice? Start with 5 minutes each morning. Sit quietly and pay attention to your thoughts without engaging with them. Just observe them. Notice how they arise and disappear. Notice how they try to grab your attention and create emotions. But don't follow them, don't analyze them, don't argue with them. Just observe them like you might observe birds flying by your window. This teaches you that you are not your thoughts. You are the one who observes your thoughts. Once you understand this distinction, you can begin to choose which thoughts deserve your attention and which should be dismissed. This is the beginning of mental freedom. 3 months after our conversation, I continued, Ibrahim returned to my house. But I almost didn't recognize him. How had he changed? His face looked younger, his posture was straighter, his eyes were clearer. But most remarkably, he seemed calm. For the first time since I'd known him, he seemed at peace. Rabbi, he said, settling into the same chair where he had wept 3 months earlier, I have to tell you what happened. Tell me. I took your test. For 7 days, I made no decisions based on increasing my wealth, and it was the most terrifying and liberating week of my life. Describe what happened. The first day, I woke up and realized I had no idea how to make decisions without considering profit. I stood in my chamber for nearly an hour, paralyzed. Every choice, what to wear, what to eat, which meetings to take, had always been filtered through the question, how will this help my business? Without that filter, I felt lost. What did you do? I remembered your alternative question. What would serve my deepest well-being and the well-being of those I love? So I asked that instead. And what happened? Everything changed. I chose clothes that were comfortable rather than impressive. I ate food that nourished me rather than displayed my status. I declined 3 meetings that would have been profitable but would have kept me away from my family all day. Instead, I spent the morning with my children, really spent time with them, not thinking about business while they talked to me. And how did that feel? Strange at first. My mind kept pulling toward business concerns, but gradually I began to enjoy their company in a way I hadn't for years. What else? I discovered how many of my daily actions were driven by compulsion rather than choice. I would reach for food when I wasn't hungry, simply from habit. I would check my business ledgers multiple times per day, not because they had changed, but because I was anxious. I would buy things I didn't need simply because I could afford them. When I stopped making decisions based on wealth accumulation, I began to see how enslaved I had become to these patterns. That must have been disturbing. It was, but also liberating. Because once I could see the chains, I could begin to break them. Give me an example. On the third day, I was in the marketplace and saw an exquisite Persian carpet. Normally, I would have bought it immediately, partly because it was beautiful, but mostly because owning it would demonstrate my wealth to visitors. But when I asked what would serve my deepest well-being, I realized I already had sufficient carpets in my home. Buying another would serve my ego, not my well-being. So I walked away. And how did that feel? Powerful. For the first time, I felt like I was making a choice rather than being driven by compulsion. What happened to your business during that week? That's the remarkable thing. It didn't suffer. In fact, it improved. How is that possible? Because I was making better decisions. When you're not driven by greed or fear, you think more clearly. When you're not trying to maximize every opportunity, you can focus on the opportunities that truly matter. Dig. When you're not exhausted from 18-hour days, you have the energy to handle important matters with wisdom rather than desperation. That week, I closed 2 significant deals that I had been struggling with for months, because I approached them from a place of calm confidence rather than anxious need. The people I was negotiating with sensed the difference and trusted me more, so the test worked. Better than I could have imagined. But that was just the beginning of my transformation. But Ibrahim, I said, you're unusual. Most men who recognize their slavery never break free from it. Why not? Because they make a crucial mistake. What mistake? They try to change their circumstances instead of changing themselves. I don't understand. Let me show you what I mean by telling you about 3 other men who came to me with similar problems. The first man was a successful goldsmith who felt enslaved by his work. He complained that he worked too many hours, dealt with difficult customers, and never had time for his family. What did he do about it? He sold his business and bought a farm, thinking that farming would give him a simpler, more peaceful life, and did it. Within 2 years, he was working 18-hour days during planting and harvest season, stressed about weather and crop prices, and arguing with neighbors about land disputes. He had changed his circumstances, but he hadn't changed himself. So he remained enslaved, just to different masters. The second man was a merchant who felt enslaved by his need for status and impressive possessions. He recognized that he was spending money compulsively to impress others. What was his solution? He moved to a different city where no one knew him, thinking that would free him from the pressure to maintain appearances. And did it work? For about 6 months, but gradually he began acquiring new possessions to impress his new neighbors. Within 2 years, he was spending just as compulsively as before, just on different things for different people. Again, he had changed his circumstances without changing himself. The third man was a wealthy trader who felt enslaved by his anxieties about money. He worried constantly about losing his wealth, about competition, about economic changes. What did he try? He gave away most of his money to charity, thinking that having less would reduce his anxiety. What happened? He became even more anxious, but now about poverty instead of wealth. He couldn't sleep because he worried about having enough money for basic needs. His anxiety wasn't caused by having too much money, it was caused by his relationship to money. When he had less money, the unhealthy relationship remained, but now it focused on scarcity instead of abundance. Ibrahim was listening intently. So you're saying that external changes don't create internal freedom? External changes can support internal freedom, but they can't create it. Freedom is not a condition you achieve by changing your circumstances. Freedom is a capacity you develop by changing yourself. Udun, from the Mishneh Torah I read, "We were slaves to Pharaoh in Egypt, and God took us out from there with a strong hand and outstretched arm." Our ancestors' freedom didn't come from changing their location. Leaving Egypt was just the beginning. True freedom came from 40 years in the desert, learning to think and act as free people rather than as slaves. The external liberation made internal liberation possible, but the internal work still had to be done. So what's the difference between men who achieve freedom and men who remain enslaved? Men who achieve freedom understand that they are both the prison and the key. They focus on changing their responses, their choices, their character. Men who remain enslaved keep looking for external solutions to internal problems. They change jobs, change cities, change relationships, thinking that the right external circumstances will finally give them peace. But peace is not a place you arrive at, it's a capacity you develop. Contentment is not a situation you find, it's a skill you practice. Freedom is not a condition you achieve, it's a choice you make, moment by moment, day by day. That's why most men never taste true freedom. They keep waiting for freedom to be given to them by circumstances. But freedom must be taken by choice, regardless of circumstances. Let me tell you the hard truth about freedom, I said to Ibrahim. Freedom is not a destination you reach once and then enjoy forever. Freedom is a daily battle, a choice you must make repeatedly, sometimes moment by moment. What do you mean? Every day you will face the choice between freedom and slavery, between responding wisely and reacting compulsively, between serving your highest good and serving your immediate impulses. And every day the forces of slavery will try to reclaim you. What forces? Your old habits, your conditioned responses, your fears and desires, the opinions and pressures of others. These forces never disappear completely, they just become more subtle. Give me an example from your own experience. Yesterday morning I woke up feeling peaceful and centered from my evening practices. But within an hour, I was pulled back into old patterns. How? A business associate sent a message about a competitor who was undercutting our prices. My immediate reaction was anxiety, anger, and the compulsion to work 18 hours to develop a counter-strategy. But then I remembered your teachings. I paused and asked, what would serve my deepest well-being? And what was the answer? To respond strategically rather than reactively, to gather more information before making decisions, to maintain my peace while addressing the challenge. So I spent one focused hour developing a thoughtful response rather than spending the entire day in anxious reaction. Perfect example. You faced the choice between freedom and slavery. You chose freedom. But notice, the choice had to be made consciously, in the moment. If you had responded automatically, you would have been enslaved by anxiety and compulsion. Exactly. And I have to make similar choices multiple times every day. This is what I call the daily battle of freedom. Most men think that once they recognize their slavery, freedom will come naturally. But recognition is just the first step. The real work is in the daily choices that either strengthen your freedom or weaken it. From the Mishneh Torah, I read, "A person should examine his deeds and repent each day." Notice it says each day, not once when you achieve enlightenment, every single day. Because every day presents new challenges to your freedom. Every day, old patterns will try to reassert themselves. Every day, you must consciously choose the path of wisdom over the path of compulsion. What makes this battle winnable? 3 things. First, daily practices that strengthen your capacity for choice. The morning reflection I taught you, the practice of deliberate abstinence, the discipline of mental observation. These are like physical exercise for your freedom. They build the strength you need for daily choices. Second, clear principles that guide your decisions. When you face a choice, you need immediate access to your deepest values. Not just intellectual understanding, but visceral commitment to what matters most. This requires regular reflection on and renewal of your core principles. Third, patience with yourself when you fail. You will not choose freedom perfectly every day. Sometimes you will react instead of respond. Sometimes you will be driven by compulsion instead of guided by wisdom. Sometimes you will choose the easy slavery over the challenging freedom. This doesn't mean you've lost the battle. It means you're human. The key is to recognize when you've chosen slavery, learn from it, and recommit to freedom the next time a similar choice arises. Freedom is not about perfection, it's about progress. Not about never falling into old patterns, but about falling less often and recovering more quickly. This sounds like a lifetime of work. It is, but consider the alternative. A lifetime of slavery disguised as success. A lifetime of being driven by forces you don't understand toward goals that don't satisfy you. A lifetime of having everything except the one thing that matters. The ability to choose your own responses to life. Which lifetime would you prefer? The lifetime of freedom. Then embrace the daily battle. It's the price of the only thing truly worth having. 6 months after Ibrahim began his journey toward freedom, I continued, something remarkable happened. What? He became more successful in business than he had ever been before. How is that possible if he stopped making decisions based purely on profit? Because he started making better decisions overall. Let me tell you what happened. Ibrahim had always been skilled at recognizing profitable opportunities, but he had been terrible at recognizing sustainable opportunities. What's the difference? A profitable opportunity makes money quickly. A sustainable opportunity makes money consistently over time while serving something larger than profit. When Ibrahim stopped being driven by the compulsion for immediate gain, he developed the patience to build long-term value. Give me specific examples. He had been in the habit of squeezing maximum profit from every transaction, even if it left his trading partners resentful. This created short-term gain but long-term problems, partners who looked for opportunities to cheat him, customers who bought from competitors when possible. But when he started asking, what serves long-term well-being, he began treating partners fairly. Yes, he made less profit on individual transactions, but his partners became genuinely loyal. They brought him opportunities they wouldn't share with competitors. They went out of their way to protect his interests. His customer relationships deepened in the same way. Instead of viewing every interaction as a chance to maximize his advantage, he viewed them as opportunities to create mutual benefit. This required him to accept smaller immediate gains, but it created a network of relationships that generated consistent business for years. What about his family? The transformation was even more remarkable. For years, Ibrahim's family had felt like they were competing with his business for his attention. His wife felt neglected. His children felt unimportant. But when he began making decisions based on overall well-being instead of just profit, everything changed. He started spending real time with his family. Not distracted time while thinking about business, but focused, present time. His children began seeking his advice. His wife began trusting him with her deepest concerns. And something unexpected happened. What? His family became his greatest source of wisdom for business decisions. His wife, who had always been excluded from business discussions, had remarkable intuition about which partners were trustworthy. His children, who had been ignored during business conversations, asked questions that revealed flaws in his reasoning he had missed. Instead of his family being a distraction from business success, they became contributors to better business success. But the most profound change was in Ibrahim himself. How so? He began enjoying his life. For the first time in decades, he woke up excited about the day ahead. Not because every day brought opportunities for profit, but because every day brought opportunities for meaningful engagement with work he valued, people he loved, and purposes larger than himself. He told me, "Rabbi, I spent years accumulating possessions that I thought would make me happy, but I never learned to be happy with what I was accumulating them for. Now I have less anxiety about money, more satisfaction with my work, deeper relationships with my family, and greater peace in my soul. I'm not just successful, I'm free." Ibrahim in my study was listening with intense attention. "This man you're describing, he sounds like someone I'd like to become. You can become him, but only if you're willing to pay the price." What price? Giving up the illusion that external success can create internal fulfillment. Accepting that real prosperity requires character development, not just wealth accumulation. Committing to the daily practices that build freedom instead of the compulsive behaviors that build slavery. I'm willing to pay that price. Then your transformation can begin right now, just as it did for him. There's one final truth I need to share with you," I said to Ibrahim as our long conversation neared its end. "The deepest truth about slavery and freedom. What is it?" "Every man chooses his master." "What do you mean?" "You cannot avoid serving something. The question is, what will you serve? You can serve your fears, your appetites, your ego, other people's opinions. Or you can serve your highest values, your deepest purposes, your most meaningful relationships. But you will serve something. The man who thinks he serves nothing is usually serving everything, every impulse, every desire, every external pressure. This is the most scattered and exhausting form of slavery. But the man who consciously chooses what to serve can focus his entire life in service of what matters most. This is the essence of freedom. From the Mishneh Torah, I read, "Just as the wise man is recognized by his wisdom and character traits, so too should he be recognized in all his actions." A free man's actions are consistent because they all serve the same master, his deepest values and highest purposes. A slave's actions are chaotic because they serve different masters from moment to moment, whatever impulse or pressure is strongest at the time. So freedom isn't about serving nothing. It's about choosing what to serve. Exactly. And here's what I've learned in my years of treating both kings and slaves. The men who choose to serve something larger than themselves become truly free. The men who serve only themselves become enslaved by themselves. How is that possible? When you serve only your own desires, appetites, and ego, you become controlled by them. Your desires become more demanding. Your appetites become more compulsive. Your ego becomes more fragile. Eventually, you're not enjoying your desires. You're enslaved by them. But when you serve something larger than yourself, your family's well-being, your community's prosperity, your God's purposes, you transcend the limitations of your individual concerns. Your personal problems become smaller because they're part of a larger context. Your daily challenges become more manageable because they serve meaningful goals. Your life becomes more satisfying because it contributes to something that will outlast your individual existence. Give me an example. Think about Ibrahim's transformation. When he served only his own wealth accumulation, he was enslaved by anxiety about money, compulsive work habits, and fear of competitors. But when he began serving his family's true welfare, his employees' dignified treatment, and his community's economic health, These personal concerns became part of a larger framework. He still worked hard and cared about profit, but these were now means to serve his larger purposes rather than ends in themselves. This gave him freedom from the compulsive drive for more, because more was no longer the point. The point was service to something meaningful. Udi, so the most profound form of freedom comes from choosing the right form of service. Yes, and here's the paradox that most men never understand. The more completely you serve something worthy, the more free you become. The less you serve anything beyond yourself, the more enslaved you become to your own limitations. This is why the freest men in history have been those who devoted themselves completely to purposes larger than their personal concerns. They found liberation through dedication, freedom through service, autonomy through commitment. Ibrahim was quiet for a long time, absorbing this final teaching. "So, the question isn't whether I will serve," he finally said. "The question is what I will serve. And I think I know my answer. What is it? I want to serve the well-being of those I love, the prosperity of those who work with me, and the purposes that will outlast my individual life. Not because I have to, but because I choose to, because that's what will make me truly free." "Then," I said with deep satisfaction, "you understand." That night, Ibrahim left my house as the dawn was breaking over Cordoba. He walked down the stone steps as a different man than the one who had climbed them in darkness hours earlier. Not because his circumstances had changed, not because his wealth had increased or decreased, not because his external problems had been solved, but because he had made the choice that every man must make at some point in his life, the choice between slavery and freedom, between being controlled by forces he didn't understand or choosing consciously what he would serve, between living reactively or responsively, between being a slave with expensive chains or a free man with meaningful purposes. And now, as I speak to you across the centuries, I want you to know, you face the same choice Ibrahim faced. You can continue living as you've been living, successful perhaps, but enslaved to patterns that rob you of peace, purpose, and genuine satisfaction. Or you can choose the path of true freedom, the path that recognizes slavery in all its disguises, the path that develops self-mastery instead of seeking external control, the path that chooses service to something meaningful instead of compulsive service to appetites and ego. This is not an easy path. It requires daily vigilance, continuous choice, regular practice. It requires giving up the comfortable slavery of following every impulse for the challenging freedom of conscious response. It requires admitting that much of what you've called success has actually been sophisticated failure. But here's what I promise you. The men who take this path discover what wealth really means. Not accumulation of possessions, but accumulation of peace. Not control over others, but authority over themselves. Not impressive achievements, but meaningful contributions. Not the slavery of always needing more, but the freedom of being content with enough while building something worthy. The choice is yours. And the time is now. Every day you delay, the chains grow stronger. Every year you wait, the slavery becomes more comfortable. Every decade you postpone this choice, the harder it becomes to remember that you ever had a choice at all. So I ask you, will you examine your own chains? Will you recognize the ways you've been enslaved by appetites, ego, others' opinions, and compulsive patterns? Will you begin the practices that develop self-mastery? Will you choose to serve instead of being served by everything? Will you commit yourself to the daily battle for freedom? The path is open. The choice is yours. But remember this, you cannot be free tomorrow if you choose slavery today. You cannot develop self-mastery someday if you avoid it now. You cannot serve meaningful purposes later if you serve only yourself in this moment. Freedom begins with the next choice you make. Choose wisely. Your life, your peace, your true prosperity depends on it. Now, if you want to keep learning the wisdom that can transform your life, I want you to do something important. Below this video, you'll see a red button that says subscribe. Click it right now. And right next to it, there's a small bell icon. Click that too, so you'll know immediately when I share the next teaching. These are not just videos. They are a path to the freedom you've been searching for your whole life. A freedom that has nothing to do with your circumstances and everything to do with your choices. Subscribe now, and let's continue this journey together. The wisdom of the ages is waiting for you. The question is, are you ready to choose freedom? The choice is yours. Make it now.